You might be wondering why I'm going to start off a recipe by pouring myself a glass of wine. And that's because this is an incredible program that I'm excited to announce. Doe Wines is partnering with the James Beard Foundation to rise to the occasion and support equality in the kitchen, restaurant recovery, and of course, food sustainability. And what better way to celebrate that than with their Sauvignon Blanc, so good, and by making my friend Darina Allen's Irish soda bread, one of the easiest doughs that you're ever going to make. We're going to serve it with a beautiful seacuterie, so stay tuned. But in the meantime, we start off first with 3.5 cups of flour. I'm going to make this one gluten-free, and then I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of salt. This could not be simpler. My friend Darina says that you use the claw as your most important tool in the kitchen. So we're just going to lightly fold this together. Now the thing about doughs is that whenever you're using flour, of course you end up toughening it the more you mix it. So the trick to this recipe is to quickly get it mixed together so that the dough stays light and fluffy when it goes in the oven. You're not going to believe all the great things that we're going to do with this, but look at how easy this comes together. We want to just add some buttermilk to this. And you can see how I'm just using that claw to kind of mix together the dough. And the thing about gluten-free flour is that this is going to come together and get relatively sticky fast. So we don't want to over-mix it. We just want to do enough to be able to wet it, and then we're going to really quickly knead it together on the cutting board. We don't want to get it overly wet, otherwise you're going to have trouble getting it onto the cookie sheet. But what we want to do, again, just using that claw, is get this just lightly moistened, just enough so that it can start to form a dough ball. And just as it does, maybe one more sprinkle. And you might be wondering, why am I adding it a little bit at a time? Because on any given day, dough will actually absorb more or less liquid. So we want to make sure that we let that day, whether it's more humid or less, decide how much liquid we're going to get. Now you can see that we're getting a really nice dough ball in here. I'm going to add just a touch more because this is actually pretty much ready. And do you see how I've just started to get it together but without overworking it? And now what I want to do is get all of that dough off of my fingers. Otherwise it's going to be hard to knead together. And what I want to do is just wipe my hands off. And then I'm going to sprinkle the board with a little bit more flour, along with sprinkling my cutting board. And the cookie sheet, of course. So we're going to put some on here. And this is going to be the quick part. So all we do is take that dough, and we're just going to knead it together lightly. You can see it's not really a kneading, we're just kind of gathering it together and getting it into a ball. Because the trick here is we want to keep as much air in as possible, and we want to work this dough as little as possible. So as soon as I get it into a ball, you can see I'm just starting to form it so that it gets nice and smooth on the top, and it's actually done. So now we'll set it onto the cookie sheet. I mean, how much simpler can that be? More time for the wine. I'm so excited about what Doe Wines is doing because they're going to make an annual donation to the James Beard Foundation. Now, if you asked my friend Darina Allen, she would say we have to, of course, cut the dough so that when it starts to rise, rising to that occasion, we get that air flowing up and going where we want it to go. So the first thing she would say is we bless the bread with a cross, and then we let out all of the fairies. And then this is going to go in a 450-degree oven for, probably about 45 minutes. Stay tuned.